speak of them. It matters how we speak of our ancestors in buildings like this, which in the Stop the Ma'angamizi Recharge Genocide Ecocide campaign, we refer to as Ma'angamizi crime scenes. And Ma'angamizi is a Kiswahili term that really, you can't really translate it exactly in English. Some people might say an African Holocaust or Holocaust, but it really speaks to the intention to destroy us as human beings. And that is genocide and ethnocide. And we have to remember that Dr. Raphael Lemkin, the pioneer of genocide, pointed out that genocide wasn't just about killing people, but it was about destroying their culture, destroying their reality, destroying the institutions that they rely on to survive, okay? And ethnocide is where we remain as physical beings, but we no longer have our original identities. We no longer can speak our mother tongue. We are subject to the epistemicide, the epistemic violence as well. And so I'm not going to refer to slaves and slave trade because these were our ancestors. And part of the repair is about cognitive justice. And it is about linguistic repairs and repairing our epistemologies, how we speak of those who have been injured and harmed. And it would be really good if from today we can use the language of the enslaved people who were sovereign human beings. They were conscious of their reality and everything that they went through. And the more and more we use this term trade, what it does, it actually legitimizes genocide, mass murder, torture, rape, and all the various crimes against humanity and war crimes that were committed against our people. And we have to remember that what happened, the spying and selling of African people was a small part of what gets classified as a slave trade or even the trafficking of African people. It was, African people were secured by violence. This included warfare. Sometimes it was intra-community warfare that happened. It was state-sponsored raiding and kidnapping and taking people as captives of war. And this is how we remember what happened. So memory matters, and we carry that memory. And it's really, really important when we're thinking about moving from atonement to what is to be done, to actually hear the voices of those of us who are survivors and whose singular mission is actually to secure justice for our ancestors, for our current generations, but also for our generations to come. Because in our knowledge systems as African people, there's no past, present, it's all one thing. Past, present, and future is one. Okay? And so I just wanted to say that. But I want to comment a bit around the what is to be done and what is being done. Because we're speaking about the need for truth-telling, which I agree with. And the reconciliation bit is problematic because we have to also tell the truth. I can understand it from a theological perspective in terms of one creation, but there's a lot that happened in between. Whatever our belief systems are, there's a lot that happened in between. And we have to tell the truth about what separates us and what has divided us, and what continues to divide us. And so we have to recognize that at the same time that, there were the Wilberforces and the European abolitionists who really were pushing for gradual abolition, let's not forget, that you had Africans, African reparationists, who were members of the Sons of Africa, like Atonement, that is highlighted in the brief for today's session. And we as enslaved Africans had our own visions of repair. But in my own historical research on the history of the international social movement for African reparations in the UK, the movement really begins in around 1725. And every generation of African people, however we self-define or they self-define, were championing repair. So when we're talking about the unfinished legacy, it's our because we are still not being heard. Kobna Otobo Kugwana wasn't heard then when he was calling for an inquiry into this evil that we refer to as the Ma'anganese. And in terms of what should be done, that's why we in the Stop the Ma'anganese campaign, working with many other formulations, the African Emancipation Day Reparations March Committee, and many other formulations around the world, have been calling for the establishment of something called the All-Party Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry for Truth and Reparative Justice as an honour to Kugwana, to Bernie Grant, and many others who were making demands of this Parliament that we've still not realised. And whereas this was seen as something fringe, it might have taken us about 20 years, but in 2020, we managed to convince Labour Party councillors and Green Party councillors to pass Atonement and Reparations motions for the transatlantic trafficking in enslaved Africans and Britain's role. And these motions were passed in Lambeth, in Islington, and it was made Green Party national policy in October 2020 to support this campaign led by grassroots campaigners in Britain who a lot of historians don't choose to ignore. Okay? They took that up. They took that up and they supported it and made it national policy to hear African people and our progeny. And that is something that we lobbied you, Madam Chair, to set up in terms of the all-party parliamentary group for African reparations, so that we could take action on this Commission of Inquiry for truth and reparatory justice. Once we have the reparatory justice, then there's some hope of some conciliation. That can happen after or during that process of effecting repairs. But what is important is that we are heard, that we have a say. And our communities who have been dispossessed from around the world, and this isn't just about us who are quote unquote in Britain, it's about the British Empire and its legacy that was global. So our bloodlines and our lineages run throughout Mother Earth. And what we're calling for is a hearing of those people who are unifying and making similar demands, although we don't necessarily all have the same strategies and tactics, so that we can be heard. Because we're tired of people telling us what they're going to do or making decisions around what forms of reparations they choose to make that is not informed by our experiences. And when we passed the reparations motion in Bristol City Council on March 2nd, 2021, the anniversary of National Black People's Day of Action, the motion pointed out that reparations must be driven by the perspectives, the knowledge systems, the needs of African heritage communities. And that councils and other institutions must come on board to support that, to give us that hearing. Because we have been working on repair. We haven't just been sitting down waiting for someone to come and fix us. Our communities have been resilient, and we have resisted the Ma'anganese in its three phases of chattelization, colonialism, and now modern day neo-colonialism. So we want to have this dialogue with the British state and society, and to be able to make proposals on what repair processes our communities are leading that should be supported. And this must be resourced, okay, in terms of the restitution of our looted resources. We don't need our resources going to colonial institutions or like universities. They need to come to resourcing public participation and listening sessions in communities across society as part of the APPG, the All-Party Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry for Truth and Reparatory Justice. And I'll leave it there.